part 2 of my Friday the 13th Retro Review Halloween special. And since today is day 2, I will be reviewing Friday the 13th part 2. And as you see, I got my scary Jason-like mask. And I was thinking about doing my whole review like this, but honestly, it's hard to breathe in here and it smells pretty bad, so I don't think I can get through it. Friday the 13th part 2, it follows the same simple story that most of these movies do. It takes place 5 years after the original film, where a new group of counselors go to this other part of the lake because Camp Crystal Lake has been blocked off. They find out that Jason has of course lived, and this is before he gets into the super big, and later on before he gets to the zombie Jason. This is when he was kind of the normal human Jason. He starts picking off counselors, and yeah, it's basically the same thing as the first one, just with Jason. And I gotta take this thing off because it's killing me. Friday the 13th Part 2 is probably my favorite in the series. I don't know, I haven't seen the other ones in a while, so I'll have to rewatch them. But I do remember when I saw these movies a long time ago, this was my favorite. And it still holds up pretty well. It still probably is my favorite, but I will get to that once I watch the other ones, because I do not know. There's a lot to like about Friday the 13th Part 2, and I like it better than the original. I think it improves on a lot of the things that I had a problem with in the original, so let me tell you what I like about it. First, the great thing about these movies is the score by Harry Manfredini. I talked about it, how it's one of my favorite horror scores of all time. It's one of the classic scores with the Kill Mommy thing that I talk about that everybody knows. It works even better here. I think he uses the effect to really good effect, no pun intended here. And I really like the score in all the movies, and it really amps the movie up to a whole nother degree of awesomeness. And the direction, while it's not as good as Sean S. Cunningham's, I think, kind of iconic direction of the first-person killer review. The guy that reviews it, I think his name is, let me cheat here. The guy's name that directed this one is Steve Miner. He uses a lot of the point of view shots and just a lot of the shots in general that Sean S. Cunningham used in the original. But I think this director, Steve Miner, shoots the action a lot better, but he did borrow a lot from the original director. Also, I think why I like Part 2 so much is that it has probably the best lead, which is Amy Steele. She's only in this movie, but I find her a much better protagonist than Alice in the original, and Alice actually is in the first 5 minutes of this one. There's an awesome scene with her. She goes in her fridge, and Jason's put his mother's decapitated head in her fridge, and that's a pretty awesome scene. I found her more likable. I found her more... I just found her acting to be more genuine and less sincere. She seemed more... I don't know, I just think of her as more likable whenever I see her in this movie. Like, Alice, I thought was pretty decent. She did a decent job, but I really like Amy Steele a lot in this movie. I found that I like the supporting characters better, although, you know, this one doesn't have Kevin Bacon. The kills, though, I think are not as good as this one, but I do like the supporting cast better, and I think everyone's a little bit more likable this time around. Also, this is kind of the most human you see Jason. He's just kind of like a deformed, kind of troll-looking guy in this one. He's more human, like people actually wrestle with him, you know, he messes up. He's not just like hacking him down like he does in the later films. This is definitely the most human, if you could call it that, of all the Jasons. So that's kind of cool to watch, because it makes it seem more realistic, although these films are not very realistic, but it actually adds to the movies a lot. Also, I forgot to mention this in the original review, but this is the last movie with Crazy Ralph in it. You know, the guy that goes, "You're all doomed, you're all doomed." That guy, unfortunately, he gets killed in this movie, and I was so pissed off about that. But I love Crazy Ralph. I think they should bring him back somehow if they do a sequel to the remake, because I love that guy. He's awesome. Bring him back. I love that guy. Crazy Ralph is my main man. The one thing that I remember from this movie very, very well is that there's this one scene involving this girl, and she goes up to one of the bedrooms in the cabin, and she can't tell if there's someone under the bed sheets or not, and she looks up, and you see like the dead scalp of one of the people, so you don't expect anything to be under there. You think it's just like a jump scare or something, but then Jason comes up out of nowhere, and it's the first time you see him like face to face, and that scared the crap out of me the first time I saw it. Like, it was literally like, holy shit, that is scary when I first saw it, and it's still pretty scary. I mean, maybe jump a little bit, but Not as much as it did when I first saw it, but it's still a really scary scene. Probably the scariest scene in the whole frickin' series. The only problems I have with it is the obvious bad acting and plot holes. Of course, there's going to be some really cheesy, lame dialogue and some really cheesy, lame acting in the movies, but that's also to be expected. But I noticed this one has a little bit more plot holes than the original. Like, there's many times where Amy could have just killed frickin' Jason, especially because he's the human Jason. And there's a couple of times where I think some of the people could have caught on quicker. But like I said, that's to be expected in any pretty much horror series, not just this one, but pretty much any horror movie series, especially from the 80s. One of the problems I had, I kind of mentioned it before, is that the kills are rather uncreative, and a lot of them take place off screen like the original. There's not really awesome standout kill, maybe the guy in the wheelchair, but there's no like Kevin Bacon kill moment in this one. So that was kind of a bummer, and they're not very creative, but that's just kind of a small problem I had. Overall, Friday the 13th Part 2 is definitely one of my favorite in the series, possibly my favorite. I enjoyed watching it again. I think it's definitely, if you're a fan of horror or slasher films, this will definitely be one that you like, especially if you love the original, because I think it improves very much on the original, and it's definitely one of my favorite in the series, so I'm going to give it a positive 4 stars out of 5, pretty high rating for a slasher film. I really enjoyed the film. It's very entertaining. The last, like, climax with Amy and Jason is a lot better than the original. Like, the original is kind of anticlimactic for me, but the one with between Jason and Amy is actually really exciting. So I really dug this film a lot, and yeah, thumbs up for The Mask. See you guys later.